got an internship while still in college, and it was at a marketing agency downtown. And I tell you what, it was a lot of fun. A lot of times, the more simplified you can make things, the better it is. And that's very hard. And a lot of times people will see things that has been done and designed by someone and is used to promote. And it looks like it's just anybody could have done it. Like it was just so simple. But it's very hard to take a clear, concise message that is powerful and be able to make it look simple. And if you can do that, that's quite an accomplishment. There's been plenty of times where you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't really see what's on the horizon because a lot of times there really isn't anything. Right. And that's the way the industry is.
That's the way
it's a roller coaster.
Entrepreneurship is.
Right.
I'm Andy Golding, partner and chief strategy officer for Kripke Enterprises, and very excited today about this episode of Toledo Works. In these podcasts, I speak with business owners to uncover their stories of success, struggles, and achievement. This podcast is sponsored by Kripke Enterprises. At Kripke, recycling metal is not just good for the environment, it's good for business. This podcast is produced by Stewart Media. And today, I am extremely thrilled and really kind of pulling the covers off of one of my deep secrets. And one of my secrets is that Kevin Obreiter. Kevin has been a graphic artist for me for over 20 years and is Kripke Enterprises graphic artist. And today we are going to dive deep into the world of graphic art and talk about the explosions of excitement that go on in there.
Wow.
Yes. So Kevin is one of those people that I have considered as like one of my hidden weapons. And I really appreciate the work that I've done with Kevin. And Kevin has produced some what I consider award-winning graphics. One of them is right behind us. And if you're familiar with Kripke Enterprises, he is behind our best stuff. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So Kevin, I've never asked you this. How old are you?
I'm 52.
All right. So you haven't aged. So we started doing business probably when you were 29 years old.
And had a head full of hair.
Well, that part I don't remember.
So I have aged a little anyways.
So I was lucky enough. I was in a family business before this, and I asked Kevin to do at the previous position he was working at. I asked him to do a company handbook for the company of my brothers and I, and this was a challenge. It was a challenge because what did I say to you about the company handbook?
Well, actually, from what I remember, because again, this was 20 years ago, you pretty much let us just run with this handbook, which is what was great. And we rarely ever get a chance to do something like that. You know, a lot of times there's a lot of restraints and guides that we need to follow. But what was nice about this, and projects like that don't come along often, where we really get to have fun with something.
Yeah.
So that was really great, and it was a handbook about it was Keystone, correct?
Yeah, it was our company handbook, and we wanted it to be wild, and you and your partners at the time did, and it was exceptional. And I knew at that point that your style and my style meshed. And after Keystone, I brought you over, or I asked you to help us at Kripke, and really you have been someone that has defined the brand of Kripke, and we very much appreciate it, including these cups that we drink out of. You designed those. I mean, if it's got a Kripke logo on it somewhere, you're probably behind it.
My hand was in it somewhere.
Your hand was in it. So how did you get into the graphics art business?
Well, that's interesting. It's not something I went to school for. And the reason is, I when I was in college at UT, I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
But the one thing I did know that I didn't want to do was get into anything in the art industry because
well, you did a great job.
Well, exactly. So the one industry that about the only industry that you ever see the word starving in front of is artist.
Right.
So that's why I said, no, I don't want to do that. But I wound up in there. It has always been a hobby of mine. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. So I love doing it. I just didn't want to or see myself making a career out of it. But I got an internship while still in college, and it was at a marketing agency downtown. And I tell you what, it was a lot of fun.
Right.
Meet a lot of great people. And I was just a gopher, go for this, go for that. And I saw and met some people for the first time that I would have to say were my mentors, really. One, Joe Pinciotti, one of the greatest designers I know, and he taught me a lot. And I met another fellow named Brent Lohman, who I work with to this day. So one day, I actually asked my boss if I could just try my hand at the design work. And he was kind of surprised. He's like, you want to do this? I was like, sure, I'd like to try it. And thank goodness he gave me a shot. I tried it. He's kind of took off from there.
Were you dealing in colored pencils back then, or what was it like?
Well, that's funny. Yes.
Okay.
So I got in right at the time where things were really switching over to computers. So we all had computers at the office there, but there was still a lot of the old-fashioned where you lay everything up by hand.
Right.
So I got to learn a little bit of that at the same time that we were just really getting into computers, and it was, very basic. You're talking, remember the old floppies, like the little 4.5-inch floppies?
Sure.
That's what we were using. So got to see things come a long way from that time.
A lot of successful entrepreneurs started in the older ways. They honed their skills a little bit. So it sounds like that maybe some of that older stuff, the older layouts, probably helped you and prepared you for when the computers came.
Oh, sure. The computers really were here once I got into it. But what was funny is a lot of the people I was working with were kind of afraid of the computers because it was new. They were a little bit older,
right?
That generation, and then they didn't really know what to do. So I found that's just something I couldn't wait to learn: the software, how to do all this stuff on the, these magical computers that everybody used to do everything by hand, and it used to take forever, to get something done.
So you were part of the transition,
correct?
Right.
Yep.
So did the older people at the agency resent you for being part of the transition?
Oh, no. They just thought I was some dumb kid. They loved helping me along and teaching me things because, they saw I really enjoyed it. And that's why it's been such a great career.
And what do you think your first hit was? Or what do you, when you think back, what locked in, whether it was a graphic, a logo, a layout, what do you think it was?
Well, of course.
Well, aside from Keystone.
Oh, boy, that's a good question. I don't know.
What type of customers did you deal with in the beginning?
Oh, well, there were all different kinds. And a lot of it was in food industry. At that time, there's a lot of Owens Corning. Everyone was trying to get a piece of all the big companies that were located downtown. So a lot of that's very technical stuff, too. We did a lot of very technical flyers and things like that, which was the gravy that a lot of the small agencies, which is where I worked, that's what we did just to pay the bills.
Sure.
So, but it was a fun time.
So you work for a big agency, or you work for a small agency?
All small.
So you work for a small agency, and I have to imagine that the hours are pretty difficult in this because the timelines that things are due. What is that like working in an agency?
Well, that is the tough part.
Okay.
The timelines and all the deadlines, because they never line up, of course.
Right.
And as computers came along, deadlines became shorter. So it was working fast and furious.
Right.
And like you said, a lot of times late nights, weekends. But again, I was young, right out of college, and you could do that stuff then. You had that extra gear, and you could just go, and you wanted to learn that stuff again.
Sure.
Just getting into your career, and you're eager and hungry to learn all that, and it was fun to do it then.
Right.
As you get older, you slow down a little though,
Sure.
and you learn to kind of manage all those deadlines a little better.
And so you were married. Did you meet your wife at work?
Not at work. That was shortly before actually I met you. We did the work for Keystone, and fortunately, what kind of led me into going on my own business is this is a different agency now, and I'd been talking with a couple other people that I worked with in the industry, and we were all talking about partnering up together and starting our own little business. That didn't happen.
Does that happen at every? I have
It
to
sounds like
imagine
it.
that
I think
every
so.
graphic group says we're not getting enough of the pie. We should get more of the pie. We should do it on our own.
Yeah, well, that, and I think the big draw is you get a lot more flexibility, and you always see the upside to everything.
Right.
And that way you think you get to just handle everything the way you think it should be handled, do the projects you want to work on.
Right.
Which is a little naive.
Sure.
But I think you're right. That's how I know of a lot of agencies have started, where employees have kind of gotten together and started their own, and other people who just tried and it just never quite worked out. And in this case, that our first try didn't really work. Things were also at the agency I was working at, it wasn't the best of times. We were kind of struggling a little bit, and my marriage was struggling a little bit.
Okay.
So can't really control that a whole lot, but I had a little bit of control over what I could do at work. So, and you know what? A lot of it's just timing. And it's luck. So the fellow that I used to work with at the first agency, Brent Lohman, he left there. Actually, he hired me there.
Okay.
And then 6 months later, he leaves, starts his own agency. And I took it a little personally because it seemed like he hired me. He's like, yeah, I'm out of here with this kid here.
Sure.
So I always kept in touch with him, did a lot of freelance work for him.
Okay.
And his business took off a little bit, and he got to the point where he had too much to handle himself, but he wasn't really able to hire somebody. So we talked one day, and like I said, this was right after things kind of fell flat with me and the other couple guys that talking about partnering, and I'm like, you know what? This sounds like an opportunity. I'm going to have to try and make a go of this.
Sure.
You just couldn't pass it by, but it's also one of the scariest things in the world. So that's kind of how it all took off.
How many years ago was that?
Okay, so that was in 2000. Well, we started talking end of 2004. And I actually took the leap right at the start of 2005.
Wow.
And I've been working with Brent ever since. Now, Brent has his agency, again, very small. And and he and I are totally different agencies, but we work out of the same office.
Right.
So I handle my clients, he has his, and he sends me a lot of work. And then it got to the point where he actually just put me on his payroll part-time, and then we continued that relationship. And then, I was able to work with my clients. And there was really no competing between the two. Oddly enough, that was one of the things we kind of worried about. And it had worked out really well. So
it's really interesting because it doesn't matter what business you're in. You can be a plumber, you can be an electrician, you can be in the recycled metals business. The people that you meet, one of our core values is that relationships are the backbone of our business, and your relationship with someone from 2004 really, although he left, he liked what you did, you liked his style, and it allowed you to go out on your own. And although you shared an office and maybe you worked together on some things, and you were able to go out on your own. And this is the guy that hired you a couple of years before. And
oh, yes.
You never know where things can go.
Exactly.
You just don't. And that's what's so interesting about business, and
Yep.
especially when you're young.
All right. And he and I just work really well together. So things just kind of moved along, and
that's great.
Never really looked back. There's been plenty of times where you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't really see what's on the horizon because a lot of times there really isn't anything.
Right.
And that's the way the industry is.
That's the way
it's a roller coaster.
Entrepreneurship is.
Right.
Right. And, you and I spoke earlier, and you don't consider yourself an entrepreneur, or you didn't maybe until I put that bug in your ear. You are an entrepreneur. You think you're a graphic artist, but you're really an entrepreneur. And how you've grown your business and the highs and lows of your business are, what entrepreneurs go through. It doesn't matter what trade you're in.
Right. And then there's a lot of struggles. You're always going to hit lows, going to hit some highs where things just kind of go smooth and almost run themselves automatically. But you never know what's going to happen.
What do you think, and this a little bit, what do you think is the power of graphic art? Like, what have you seen, whether it's your own, your partners, or others, where the message has been so well put together that it has changed people's thinking?
Well, actually, you summed that up pretty well. That's very true. So when you can do it right, which is difficult, a lot of times the more simplified you can make things, the better it is. And that's very hard. And a lot of times people will see things that has been done and designed by someone and is used to promote. And it looks like it's just anybody could have done it. Like it was just so simple. But it's very hard to take a clear, concise message that is powerful and be able to make it look simple. And if you can do that, that's quite an accomplishment. And that's not easy. Some people can do it. Other people, it's tough. But that's kind of the key.
So, as I have grown and as someone who does advertising, I always try to squeeze in print and in graphic art when I first started about 20 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And everyone knows, no one reads ads like that. You can't mentally process ads like that. But I always felt like if this is the space that I have, I want to get as much of my message into it as possible. I have to imagine you guys are fighting that all the time.
Absolutely. So you're no different than anybody. That's what everybody does. And that's one of the first things that we have to do is go in there and really try and find what the core message is and how to say that in as few words as possible so it is very clear and just it really resonates with people.
Right.
And that's tough, but that is a big part of the design process, actually. Not just making it look nice, but figuring it all out and the preparation that goes into that. So a lot of what I do actually is spent copy editing. Right. Getting all those words down.
I mean, I really think you're very, very good at it.
Well, and then the other thing that I always did was you would make type really, really small where you couldn't even hardly see it. And then now as I've gotten older, my eyesight's not as good. I've realized now, because I've been told many times, you make type too small. So that's, yeah. But, when there's a large message and trying to say a lot, you got to figure out how to get it down to a small, concise message.
So one thing I've been thinking about as I was preparing for this is, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Everyone wants to put 1,000 words in with the picture, but picture is worth 1,000 words. And it does take, I have to imagine that when you're working with different clients, as I said earlier, everybody wants to put 20 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag and pulling everything out and convincing people that less is more. Is that part of your job, less is more?
That's a lot of it. That's a key component. I mean, if you can do that, the rest actually comes really easy. It follows, and it makes the rest of it that much easier and better.
What are some of the the ads today that you look at that inspire you, and anyone's marketing inspire you?
In particular, not really, but I still love watching commercials.
Okay.
That's one of the best ways to get inspiration for things is seeing what everybody else is doing in all different sorts of industries. And there's so many different perspectives on things, and it's just neat to see just the diverse way that people come up with ideas and like to convey the ideas. So I still like to just watch a lot of commercials, and I know everybody's streaming everything. They just fast forward through them. But that's one of my favorite things. I'd almost sometimes rather watch that than whatever the show is.
So you don't pay for the YouTube like I do to have no commercials. You want the commercials.
No.
That's
nope.
funny.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I can say we can disagree on because I can't stand them, but I also don't need that inspiration. So one other thing that I often think about with you and your business, how do you turn your mind off that if you're in a streak of making ads or making graphics for different businesses, how do you keep them all from being blue or using circles? Or, how can you make sure that you are really detaching the ads from each other? Do you understand what I mean?
Oh, sure. A lot of times that's difficult. A lot of times I do catch myself making similar things for different clients, and you have to stop yourself. A lot of times the best thing to do is just walk away, come back to one much later. But that happens a lot. Now, one thing that's become very popular too that really helps with that, and this is actually something that I really enjoy doing, is most mid-sized, larger companies have graphic design standards, like a pamphlet that lays everything out. It can be kind of restrictive, but it also defines the brand. And then that way, everything is consistent, which is key.
Right.
So if you can do that and follow that, and then it also allows other people, even within the company, if they're doing anything, they have the elements, they have the colors, they have the fonts, they know exactly how something should go together and look. And again, it just keeps everything consistent. So when you look at this, it is for that company. It's immediately identifiable. So having those kind of things, even though it seems like it might be a little structured,
right,
is helpful.
So when I first started here and a little bit of time after that, the first thing I did was I said, Kevin, make us some brand standards. Make us the colors, make us the fonts. And you did, and like everybody else, and we do a good job of staying with those. But when I'm going to speak right to the camera. If you are a business that wants your brand to grow, you need to stay consistent with it. Correct. And a graphic artist is your partner to do that. Kevin could be your partner to do that, to help you create brand identity and the specifications that go along with it. It is not a coincidence that the color is always the same, that the way the logo lays out is the same, the space around the logo is the same. Those things are thought about. Am I correct? And I'm going to take your job.
I'm learning a lot here from you. I know.
I'm going to take your job.
It took me years to figure that out.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm going to take your job. But those are the things that, I get a lot of compliments on our brand at Kripke Enterprises in some of our businesses. And, one graphic, consistency and repetition are what create a brand. And when you have a partner that can look out for those things and create that, as you are doing ads year after year, people then become familiar with what they're looking at, and then they can look into the ad and see what is new. They're not trying to figure out who you are.
Correct.
And that is what that's what my relationship with you and your business has helped us do and has helped us grow our business and become, in the aluminum space, a very recognizable business. So I very much appreciate that. And
that's quite high praise. And I really appreciate that.
It's the truth. And I brought you out of the back closet that the graphic artist hides in to do this for you. And it separates the businesses. It separates businesses by having great brand management. And to have great brand management, you need a great graphic artist. How you like that? I told you this would be easy.
Yeah,
I told you this would be easy.
Yeah, keep going.
I know.
You're doing great.
Maybe I'll just do the whole thing. So I asked you a couple minutes ago. So you said that you like watching commercials for inspiration. What are some other things that inspire you when you are working on people's graphics?
It's actually the people themselves that's probably the biggest inspiration. So one of the things I really enjoy is talking with the clients, getting to learn their business and how they feel about it. And you learn so much from them, and it's very contagious. Like, you feel their energy, and they always have ideas. So it's great to just meet with them, talk, and it's like a brainstorm.
Right.
Pass ideas back and forth. Not all of them are going to be good. Most of them probably aren't, but eventually you end up hitting on something and then refining that, and just to continue that process with the clients. And for me, what's worked is, again, just that relationship. So that's a big part of the inspiration. Because I'll usually leave, like when we come up with a new project, I'll usually leave all excited. Right. I can't wait to dive into this and just start, So you have to try. Not everything works first time. It never does. So you usually got to start something, start over and start over again, drink a lot of coffee because it's going to be a late night, and start over again.
So when you present your stuff, your presentation, whether it's a pamphlet or a new logo or an ad, how do you keep your opinion? How do you bite your tongue? Because really, you show people 3, but don't you really just want to show them 1?
Well, that's true. And what's funny is they always pick the one you don't want them to.
Right.
But, that's just how it goes. So I don't know that you can bite your tongue or not. It's just,
don't you want to say to someone? The
great thing is, no matter what, they're going to pick something that you did. So,
right.
There's gratification in whatever option they choose.
Right.
So,
have you ever designed anything that's been national consumer product?
Oh, a national consumer product.
Right.
Boy, I'm not sure. I mean, I've done some product design,
or an
like
ad
that,
for
but it's all usually
consumer.
pretty local stuff.
Okay.
Nothing really national, although you find things, oddly enough, out in different areas. Like I've done work for different universities, University of Arizona and other places like that. But
right. So you can work for anybody anywhere. You can have Zoom calls. You can do that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And so, we spoke last week, and you were telling me about how the client, how your big client, your company's big client, unfortunately just got sold. It was part of a company that everybody knows in Toledo that's selling off pieces and parts. And now that is kind of, it has put you in a position where you are reinventing yourself. And
correct.
And that's tough. You can see it even in your body language.
Yes.
It's tough. The reinvention of yourself is a challenge. So, my goal today was to bring the graphic artists out of the storage room or wherever they do their work, and give you an opportunity and give people an opportunity to understand the importance of a graphic artist, and also give them an opportunity to hire you because, hey, you lose your biggest client, you could probably use some work.
Could use a lot of work.
Right.
So,
and the entrepreneur, what I have talked about on this podcast for, 12 shows is that the entrepreneur pathway is not only uphill. There are some valleys as well. And I've been fortunate. I've talked to people that have been at the top of the mountain and people that are in a valley. And to be an entrepreneur, which is what a lot of our customers are, you can't just go up. There have to be some downward things. And unfortunately, right now, with the loss of this big customer, you're in one. And so, as we talked about, I said, let's get the word out. People respect what we do, and I want someone to I want people to know that you're available to do business for them.
Well, thank you. I mean, that, again, high praise. I really appreciate that. And yes, so looking ahead to 2024, now until then, it's a big transition, and we're going to see what happens.
Right.
I've got a lot of work I got to do. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the answers. I don't know what the
it's a tough
magic
spot.
Is that's going to
it's
solve
a tough spot
all that,
being
but
an
it is
entrepreneur.
tough. So it's time to, like you said, really reinvent, and we'll see what happens in 2024 now.
Well, here's my last shameless plug for you, and these are all shameless. This is what you do
Shame
for
away.
a friend of 20 years. Kevin is amazing. His work is amazing, and if you want to use Kevin and his agency for a project that you have, here's how you reach out to him.
So I'm on LinkedIn, of course. Email me at kevin@b-creativestudio.com for the time being.
Which will all be in the below, wherever, which will be in the belows of us right now.
And then also look for the new kocreates.com. But again, like I said, this is all coming 2024, so it's all in the works.
There is no one that is watching this that doesn't understand what it's like to reinvent yourself. Yeah. So I wish you the best of luck on your reinvention, and we've got some exciting new graphics coming out for next year at Kripke Enterprises that you're working on right now. So here's to 2024. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing
so
this.
much.
I appreciate
it, Andy.
You got it.
Great seeing you.